Hi, Jeremy Cordeaux in the Court of Public Opinion. I'm just on air here to let you know that we'll be live streaming the Court of Public Opinion every Friday between 9 o'clock and 12 on jeremycordeaux.com. Please join us. We'd love to have you.
Hello and welcome to Sundoku, the podcast for anyone who enjoys the magic and escape of books. I'm Sarah and I'm with you today with a Minisode. I keep on sneaking these in. This time I have a chat with Trent Dalton, who brings us a story set in modern times called Lola in the Mirror. It leans so hard into the style that Trent is known for. Gritty hard truth set alongside magical realism and told through the eyes of a young protagonist, who initially we don't get to know by name. The story is set in Brisbane, and it's told in such a way that the city itself becomes the character. And my first observation to Trent was that the story seemed, in many ways, to be a love letter to that city.
I'm telling you, that city saved my life and my family's life. When I was being raised by my dad, and, you know, that bloke raised 4 sons on his own for about 10 years in this social housing place, in this place called Bracken Ridge. But it was the city of Brisbane, the volunteers at Lifeline who furnished our home, at a school principal, Pat Caffrey, who dropped off cardboard boxes filled with food. All those people that wrapped their arms around the Dalton boys. And it's like, if I'm writing about that city with a loving way and if it shows, I'm so proud. And then cut to the darker aspects. When us boys, I'm the youngest of 4 boys, we're all teenagers around the 1990s, and our mum's going through a lot of struggles, sort of struggles I wrote about in the book Boy Swallows Universe, but I didn't write about her worst struggles, which were with a kind of horrendous man who pretended to love her for quite some time, but he was just a really horrible, horrible man. And in the moments when she tried to run from that guy, she was embraced by the city of Brisbane again. So when you ask me about that city, I'm telling you, like, it's so deep in me. And then what's more, by the time I turned 20, I'm trying to process all that stuff, all those wild times. That city gave me a job as a journo. And that city said, we want you to write about us. And we're gonna, for some reason, allow you to do what you do beautifully, which is just listen and talk to people. And, you know, we're going to allow you to do that for another 20 years as an adult, to process 0 to 20 as a kid. So that's all that city. It's kind of why every book I write feels like a fairy tale when it's related to Brisbane. It all feels like fairy tales to me. It's in my blood and it's in my story, and it absolutely saved my life.
I think that's really evident in the way that you write about it. You write about it as a refuge, that there are scary things out there, but a person in need can find those places and those people that carry them and catch them. And that brings me to the plight of your protagonist, who is just so in need of support and help, and those arms wrapped around her by the people that she knows, because she doesn't even know who she is. What a premise. Tell me about how you landed there.
I started this book structure-wise. I started in the middle. I had a thought, Sarah, about a 17-year-old girl, a bit wayward, a bit lost, and I was struck but electrically charged. I had a vision of a 17-year-old girl inside a mansion she's not supposed to be in. She's in the bedroom of someone who lives in this mansion, and that bedroom is owned by a young man that she might just fall in love with. And she's robbing that place, but what if a thief fell in love with the boy whose bedroom she's robbing from? I was like, that's interesting. That could be a kind of cool love story start. So then I worked backwards. And I was like, okay, what might this girl's backstory be? Where might she have begun her journey? Well, if she's robbing mansions, she might likely be homeless. She might likely be one of the 120,000 Australians who sleep rough every night. What got her there? Well, she might be part of the growing portion of that homeless group who are forced onto the street because of domestic violence. All right, well, maybe her mum might be on the run, and maybe they've been on the run for 17 years from an act that the mum did 17 years ago in a suburban domestic kitchen that could have happened in any street across Australia? And what if the mum has chosen to never tell the daughter her real identity because identities are dangerous when you're on the run? Because child protection could find out, because the police could charge this woman for the act she did. And what if that girl, the only thing she wants to know is her name? What if I could write a story that goes for 420 pages and you don't get that answer until the very last sentence? I was like, that could be cool. I was like, that could be cool. And that's where Lola in the Mirror was born. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that insight into how you get that granule of a story and how you explore it, because it's always interesting to hear from people whether that experience is linear.
Yeah.
Or you jump around and you gather. Your writing tends to be from creativity and from the heart. You know, so some people will go out and they'll do 3 months of research on a particular topic and then dig it. I'm sure there's research in there, but it tends to be driven, I feel, by a creative narrative. Is that right?
Oh, for sure, Sarah. Like, I've got about 150-page Word document. There's 3-sentence blocks all through that of story ideas. And I just write every one of them down. I strongly recommend it to any listener interested in writing. Just please promise me you write every notion, every silly idea, every brilliant idea. Do not ever think your brain is ever going to hold them for you. It will not do that for you. You need to get it down. And I used to put them into these notepads that I carried around, like sort of trying to be some sort of, literary scribe kind of guy, looking all cool with my leather satchel and stuff. And it's just not practical either, because you forget to go consult your notepads that you've got scattered across your home and that get wedged in amongst your girls' year 2 art projects. And a really handy way is just this Word document. And I often revisit that Word document and go, which one's actually speaking to my spine? And then if it passes that first test, the sort of spine never lies. That's a great little writing thing I always like, is just your brain will trick you every turn. Self-doubt, it will consider you a total chancer, but the spine never lies. If you're feeling something, you're feeling it. And you're exactly right. I try and get that real heart thing going. Am I feeling this in every bit of my body? And if I am, then I go, okay, now let's start working on the story. And then that's when I get off my chair and start, well, for this book, I absolutely walked from exactly where our nameless hero goes in the story. So this particular event happens along the Brisbane River that sort of kickstarts her really hardcore into searching for her identity, as she's really propelled into a quest, you might say, but it's sort of a life and death quest. It sort of almost becomes, because she hooks into a sort of bit of a world of crime and so forth. But it's pretty much set within a particular part of Brisbane where you could trace it from Central Station on the northern side of the river all the way to West End on the south side of the river, which isn't too far, but I just walked that section of Brisbane back and forth for days, taking photographs, printed all those photographs out, stuck them across my board. So then you've got my journalistic background meeting the special part I keep in my brain where I'm dreaming and I'm doing these romantic kind of whimsical things that I'm thinking, or these notions that I'm trying to go for in stories. And you're just meeting those two worlds together, and you're kind of hopefully ready to write. But it all starts at the heart. You want to learn about a 17-year-old houseless girl? Okay, start at the heart. Go through the blood and then go up to the head, go to the eyes, and then if you've done all that, then start to listen to what she has to say. That's absolutely how I go. What's hurting her heart? What's expanding her heart? What's really ruining her brain, as in memory, And what is she seeing with her eyes? And now what's she saying? That's a really cool way to sort of go about a character, but it's sort of a life thing as well.
I think that's evidence in the creativity and poetry. It's lovely to see someone not going, I've got to condense this, especially as my other world is journalism, where we're thinking about how to be as simple and condensed as possible. To read stuff that is so creative and vibrant, it's lovely, and I like your style.
Oh, thanks, Sarah. And like that, I know full well, right? I'll be fully candid. I know full well that style is not for everyone, and I've learned that after 5 years, and I get slammed for my full-hearted sentimentality. I branded myself with that, and that's fine. I think sentimental men could be used a bit more in Australia, but it's just the only way I can write. I promise you, I sit down at my laptop and think of all the alternatives. And the alternatives are so dark, Sarah. It's just so horrible and awful. Certain things that could have happened. And it terrifies me. I see a vision of myself sometimes, not just things that could have happened to my mum and my old man and my bros. Even later, if I'm 20 and I don't meet the woman who became my wife, Fiona. I just see this version of myself, and I'm a drunk and I'm eating Red Rooster chips and watching the movie Platoon. It terrifies me, you know what I mean? And I sometimes actively think about that before I'm starting a writing session. If you think like that, if you think about how horrible it would be to lose the person you love most in this world, you will be filled with so much gratitude and light. It will charge your fingertips and it will transfer itself to the page, I swear. And that's where that stuff comes from. And I know, like, people just go, oh man, it's too much. But I do also try and urge people to remember that I promise you that all of that stuff, it just comes from such dark places. It's me actively trying to show the world that I believe in the power of holding on to light. Like, that's the cheesiest thing you might hear today, but it's so true. And it's like all of that bouncy, flowery stuff that I've been getting paid out on since I was 20 and a journalist. It's not what everyone needs every day, but it might be what that flippin' reader in Adelaide might need. And I know for a fact that that's what people have needed sometimes, and I get very proud of that.
But you tell very dark stories in a flowery way.
Oh, totally. That's the hilarious thing.
Which is the amazing thing. It's like that capacity to show a human in some of the most dire parts of their life.
Oh, yeah.
But with the capacity to dream and be inspired by a world that's better and to see the colour and the light. It gives you hope as you read through some grim parts of a story. I know it's the way you write, but is it intentional that conflict between the dark and the light exists in your novels?
I've just seen it, Sarah, in the real world. Every time I have ever seen something truly horrific, I'm saying something that could be totally disturbing, that could stay with you, for years, it has been counterbalanced by some moment of magic. At the heart of Lola is the spectre of a particular guy. I call these people monsters because in my book, any man who perpetrates violence against women inside a kitchen is a monster. I urge that person to seek the help that they need to return to the human that they are. But in my view, when I was a boy, they looked a lot like monsters to me. And I just remember my brothers and I holding one of the particular monsters in our lives down once, pinning him down as my mum was sort of making a bit of a getaway, right? And I'll just never forget, we were on a train home, like we'd gone across town for this event, this thing that we did. It was an act of kind of rescue. I just remember weeping with my brothers, like after a moment of peace, just breaking down, And then my older brothers were telling me jokes, Sarah. Like, they just started telling me jokes and just making me laugh to stop me from crying. I've just seen that too many times. I'm just big on that. I'm just big on finding the little strings hanging down through the darkness, little ropes, little yellow ropes just hanging down. And I love any Aussie kid in particular who just freaking jumps for it and clings and starts climbing. And to fully portray what that feels like, I also feel you also have to go there. So they did a play up in Queensland of Boy Swallows Universe, right? It was beautiful. And I said to Mum, oh, hey, you got to come, opening night will be so great. But Mum, I've seen a bit of it and it's really heavy. Like, it's so full on and there's like real moments of violence. And I'm just a bit worried about you seeing that stuff. And she says, Trent, what about my 66 years on Earth suggests to you that I can't take 2 hours of Queensland theatre? And it was just like, that is so beautiful and funny that she's encapsulated her life like in that way, and that she can turn it to humour and turn it to light. Yeah, and I just grabbed her just like, you're the best. You're just the best. You always have been. You always will be. You're my freaking hero. And you just showed yet again why. You know what I mean? To show the world how much of a hero she is, I have to really go there, to show the darkness that she's come out of, to also show the world how heroic she is. But that was the thing. Not only did she say that, she said, if you're going to go there, you better bloody go there. You better honour every other woman who's gone through that, and you better show it for what it feels like. That message has always stayed with me.
As much as you write characters, when it's also heavily drawn from your personal experience, it must be exhausting not only writing but also talking about it at times. How do you go with this process of sitting in front of people and picking through it? How do you exercise self-care in all of this?
Yeah, it's really, I own it for what it is. And I had this pact when I was a journalist, and You know, I used to lose sleep at night for how I treated people who gave me their life stories. Like, I used to just go, did I do the right thing with that sacred thing? You go into a lounge room, and someone sits there for 4 hours, and they are telling you everything because they feel it's going to do some good, or there's some reason why they might feel that you are going to leave them better than how you found them. And I know there were times in my 20s when I was like quite ambitious and trying to make my mark or something in journalism, and I think I left people worse than how I found them. That's always stayed with me, and so I have this pact where it's like, I'm going to return the generosity of countless people who gave me their stories for these 4,000-word features I'd write every Saturday. The deal was that when it comes time for me to ever be interviewed, you get everything. You get whatever you want to know. The worst parts and hopefully the good parts. Maybe go even too far. It's like my wife goes, you didn't even have to say that story. Why did you even tell? But it's because I'm just trying to give people insights into where the stuff comes from. But yeah, like there is absolutely a cost to that. Oh, mate, this is where the whole theme of Lola comes from. So in the book, the girl's constantly looking into the mirror, and just that sacred thing that we all do where you look into the mirror and we give it about 2 minutes thought, you know, and yet it's the most existential, deep thing we might do every day, just staring at ourselves in the mirror, right? And I don't know if you've ever done it, Sarah, where you look in and you just go, how the hell did I get here? Like just here, in this bathroom, this bedroom, like how did it come to this? I'm this person. Is that me? Is that who I wanted to be? Or is that the person the world wanted me to be? Or it feels like I just got here from a series of steps that I stumbled into. Should I be doing more to chase some other version of me? And what I do often is, you know, after a big book event or something, brushing my teeth, staring at myself and just going, you idiot, why did you tell that story? Who are you? Why did you feel the need to do that? Or have you even done the right thing in telling those stories? Or did you write that book the way you wanted to? And it's just all self-doubt. It's all nonsense, and not just like, hey man, that was beautiful, that thing that woman said, how she came up and said she got through her monster, and like she's never been seen the way she's been seen from this book. And you don't tell yourself that. You're telling yourself all the stuff that's just awful. I'm really bad at taking the good things from the sharing. But I find the whole self-care thing for me is the writing. I'm actually more comfortable at that laptop. That is actually, I realize, the safe place. And it's like so good to have that because, you know, without that, I'm sure that I'd be just reaching for the bourbon. Like there's just no doubt about it. Like any love of booze that my old man had, it's absolutely in my veins as well. And it's a daily cool thing to have just this beautiful portal to just put all that stuff into words and hand them off to some other beautiful person called a reader. And they go, I'll take this for a bit. And even more, I might even help you carry it for a bit. And it's just like, that's an amazing process. The sacred generosity of a reader picking up a book and going, let me help you with this, you know, just by reading it, you know, and that's a really cool thing.
Before we walked into this interview room, I said to you, I haven't seen the whole book, because what I got in advance was a review copy. The unnamed young girl is an artist. And so for each of the chapters, it's taking us through these drawings that the artist has done that sort of colour this world. And I hadn't seen them. I'd seen one and I'd read the descriptions of the other, but I had them in my head. So I'm so looking forward to looking at them. But that device is fantastic in terms of setting up a story beyond a story. That's inspired. I really enjoy it.
Oh, Sarah, that got me out the spine. Honestly, it hit me. I went, I know what I'm going to do. Yeah. I've never seen that in a book. This thing's going to open with these curatorial notes, similar to ones you might find in an art gallery. And these notes will flag for the reader certain things that are coming in the chapter you're about to read. However, the notes are written by our protagonist in her head. This girl basically, she has faith in her gift. I think she's aware that her drawings are good, and it's the only thing she's got in this world, right? In this really tough world she's in, kind of being raised in this homeless community by the river in Brisbane, and she's got these black ink sketches, and she has this suspicion she's going to be great one day. So therefore, she goes, what if I live my life as if there is going to be an exhibition about me? And there's going to be people 100 years from now who are going to go to this exhibition and they're going to be hearing about the things I'm doing now in 2023. So therefore, I better give those people a darn good story, you know? So it's like every act I'm going to do the daring act. I'm going to do the romantic act. You know, if you knew that your life was going to have significance 100 years from now, maybe it would change how you live your ordinary life every day. And so that led me to like, okay, brilliant. So let's put these drawings in there and let's have these characters come to life through black ink sketches. So then, okay, I can't draw. I wish I could. But then I called up this guy named Paul Heppel. And Paul Heppel, if anyone's read my book, Boy Swallows Universe, there's a really, one of my favorite scenes in that book. It's where young Eli Bell is having almost his final moment with his best friend Slim Halliday. And this sort of elderly ex-prisoner who's dying of cancer. And they're on the Horningbrook Bridge fishing. And really pivotal moment in that book. Paul Heppel's just this, beautiful Sydney father, working man. He's got a day job. He just loves to draw, and he posts these beautiful drawings of his family on Instagram. He reads Boy Swallows Universe, and his wife, he didn't even tag me, and his wife tagged me in on a drawing he did of Eli and Slim on this bridge. And it was so moving. It was so moving. In fact, I called Paul up later and said, can I print this out and frame it and give it to the actor who's playing Eli Bell in the stage play that I was just telling you about? So I had all that idea from Lola in the Mirror about the girl and the curatorial notes. And the most beautiful phone call happened, Sarah, where I called Paul. I tell him all about this nameless hero that I'm telling you and your amazing listeners about now. And I just said these 2 words. I just had to say 2 words. And the words were, she draws. And he's just like, Trent, I'm in. Paul just became like this nutty professor, and he just went away and he wrote these sweeping essays. For every 1 drawing, he did 25. Yeah, Paul's just done an amazing job.
The other thing that struck me, that network of the streets, which I'm sure through your reporting, you've seen it, that camaraderie and the people looking out for people, it's exceptionally well realised here. It's so respectful of the different people and the places, regardless of what demons they're dealing with personally. You've got people who have alcoholism, who are, struggling for different reasons.
Yeah.
You don't give the monsters any credit, good. But there are people who perhaps, those who haven't had an experience of seeing people on the streets or haven't had that interaction with them, might feel that they are also potentially monsters, and you dispel that in your writing of them. And it's lovely to do that.
I went there with caution too. 2 big reasons. Would I do anyone who's fallen through the cracks of Australia, of this nation of ours, would I do them a disservice by putting a spotlight on it? And second, would I come across as some earnest, worthy person trying to do some sort of shallow, world-creating, social issue, flag-waving, and it coming across as untrue or inauthentic? I just go, well, that's ridiculous not putting a spotlight on it, because it's something that I have absolutely just naturally just leaned to, and I think it's from my past. I think I sought out as a social affairs journalist. I think I was actively trying to work out, like I did a lot of magazine pieces on domestic violence. I did a lot of stories on homelessness. And what happened, Sarah, I went even further at one period. I spent about a good 10 years documenting, every 2 years or so in a sort of a Michael Apted 7-Up type way, this one particular homeless shelter in Brisbane, this place called Third Space. And it's been around for 50 years. It serves 3,500 meals every month to Brisbane's homeless. It's an iconic place. First story I did in that place was that earnest, worthy thing where I focused on the foot sores, nothing but the darkness, the skeletal issues. I went homeless myself in a ridiculous act of journalism that was totally unworthy, because it's not exactly the same as anyone who is actually sleeping rough, because I had a wife and 2 kids to always go home to. By the back end of my week-long experiment, I learned a lot, though, about the way people look at you. That was a really good, worthy exercise, part of it. But I did this book called Detours. This is where everything changed. All these regulars in this place, they would keep on telling me, they go, I know you think I'm a drunk. I know you think I'm a drunk. But please remember, if you're reporting on me, I didn't start this way. And please remember, Trent, if you're reporting on this stuff, drugs and drink will keep you on the street. They won't always put you on the street. That notion kickstarted this book I wrote that no one read. 500 copies were made by the shelter. We got a little small publisher to print them, and We sold them at this wonderful book event. It was beautiful, launched by the Queensland Governor in the Fortitude Valley, right near where this homeless shelter is. All the money went back to the 20 people who told me their stories, and each one of those stories centered around a detour moment. And it was all working on this idea that there's a moment for everyone. All of us are 3 steps away from that situation. Maybe 2 steps these days. It used to be a case where you could rely on social housing, but now you're waiting 2 years for that. So there's every likelihood if you reach step 3, you might have to bypass it, and you'll probably go straight to having to sleep rough, or even couch surfing or whatever. But it was fascinating, Sarah. Like, the moments were often acute misfortune, happenstance, childhood traumas. Like, so much of it is childhood trauma. Mental health is such a massive issue on the street. I realised it all came down to essentially 2 emotions: confusion and sorrow. Confusion and sorrow are such powerful emotions for people who've fallen through the cracks. And it's like, if we remember, right, as anyone who is fortunate enough to have the house and a pretty decent situation, if we can just remember that all that person is actually really troubled by is confusion and sorrow. And if we remember that they're just emotions that, man, I've felt them. I've had a bit of that. I'm sure, who hasn't felt confusion and sorrow at times? It's just that we're lucky enough to not have to deal with that on a 24/7 basis. That's how I tried to come at the book. It was just, how did these people get confused and how did these people get their sorrow? And that tied in so well to identity. And it's the same thing our nameless hero is massive issue on the street is actually proving who you are. Like, oftentimes people on the street lose their identity physically, like their actual documentation. And there used to be a job at this third space place. It's now, because it didn't get the funding, the job doesn't exist anymore. It was a dedicated officer whose daily job was helping people to prove who they are. Like, literally going to Centrelink and going, okay, this person tells me their name is this, I'm going to help you prove that. And it's like, that's such an interesting metaphor for who we are as human beings, you know what I mean? And it's so hard to find that out if you actually don't even know your name, or you can't even tell someone who you are. It's just that the girl in my book wants to tell people she's someone different.
The girl's experience with the amazing people that she has to know. I mean, she has her own home that's not a house. The van in the lot.
That's right. Toyota Hiace van.
Yeah, with a group of others who live in vans too, but they look out for each other. They eat together. They forage together. They kind of work it all out so resources are shared in that real communal way.
Yeah.
And her drive to escape isn't to escape the people, it's to escape the situation, and her drive to find herself isn't kind of to turn her back on what she is. It's to just have a self-discovery, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. And to the point where that will become a dilemma for her. Do I go for more? Or do I stay safe among the people I actually love and who are going to keep me safe? I could link that to my life story. Sarah, I looked in the mirror when I was like 12 years old, right? My brother Jesse and I shared a bedroom, and we had this Lifeline mirror, right? It was ridiculous, this Duchess. And it was like something Elizabeth Taylor had. And it was like someone obviously gave it away to Lifeline, and then the Dalton boys got it. It was this beautiful, ornate mirror. In many ways, the mirror in Lola in the Mirror is kind of inspired by that. But I'd stare into this mirror when I was 12, right? And I'd see all these ambitious, wondrous things. Like, I saw myself looking like Daniel Day-Lewis on the arm of Winona Ryder, and my best friend's Michael J. Fox, and then but then by the time I hit about 15, it was just like I saw the truth, and the stuff that was around me was just like the past wasn't looking too good. That was the truth I was discovering. The present was awful, and if the past and the present aren't looking too good, then the future isn't going to look too good. I always say, like, someone at this youth crime event in Brisbane asked me this really epic question. They're like, Trent, how do we solve youth crime in Brisbane? Massive issues with youth crime in Brisbane right now. And I said this highfalutin answer that I don't think anyone understood, but I said, we need to change what they're seeing in the mirror. We need to change what those particularly young boys, teenage boys, not the young men, are seeing in the mirror. Because right now, they're seeing nothing but ugliness, like, everywhere, And I remember that, like, hitting about 16, 17, and that mirror that I used to look into with wonder, like, I'd pull this baseball cap over my head and I'd reach for my Long Beach cigarettes, and if I looked in the mirror at all, it was just to say, like, 3 words, like, F them all, And it's just like, They just hated a lot of things, and I hated probably myself. The whole thing for Lola in the mirror is this girl going, am I going to jump? Am I going to jump into some of this stuff that I'm thinking, that I suspect I can do, And she sees this vision in a mirror, and that vision keeps disintegrating as the world around her gets worse. You know what I mean? I was like, that's what it feels like sometimes. If the world around you was feeling a bit ugly, sometimes you can feel ugly yourself, And it's like, I thought that was really interesting in that story. And some of my favorite bits are when literally this woman named Lola in the mirror, she starts like losing limbs and stuff. And it's because the world around our nameless hero is disintegrating itself in the worst kind of way, is decaying, like literally decaying. And sort of that's how a human can feel sometimes. And all of that stuff started to get very deep for me in the writing of this. Yeah.
So we already broke the little bit of mystery that she does end up in this home, like this world outside of her world.
Yeah.
And she gets to have a little look around, and and she finds this potential connection to a boy, that might hold a key to her future. I like that little element of romance. It's like that sliding doors thing. It's like this is the moment that could just change everything.
You're giving me chills because that's it. She's literally getting a window into how the other half live. And this is the home of, wow, this boy must be seen by everybody. This handsome boy must just get seen all the time. And that girl's dealing with some stuff where she feels like, she feels so invisible that she's come to believe she almost might even possess the power of invisibility. She literally stands in a street as all these business people pass, and she just starts screaming like, I am invisible! I am invisible! I am invisible! And it's like, that's so powerful because no one actually even still acknowledges her, and they just keep walking past. And like, that's possible in a city. It's possible in any one of our cities where you just get completely ignored. Probably people thinking you're having a bit of a mental health episode, and they will continue on. But there's a fair case that a girl like that might start to feel something for a young man who does choose to see her. I was like, that could be sweet. And there's a way in which that all happens that really I love. Like, I was just really chuffed with this little storytelling structural thing that happens in that book that, like, I got me really excited about her realization and her assumptions being just shattered because she might be thinking certain things about this particular young man in that bedroom, and in that other place she's just walking around and assessing, picturing what must it have been like for him to grow up, like what was his 17 years like. But to have her assumptions shattered as well in a really beautiful way was something I thought a really good starting point for a kind of hopefully lovely love story.
The other thing that I really enjoyed about this was how contemporary it is. It's almost the most contemporary setting in a book that I've read for quite a while.
Great.
And my brain was so shocked into that experience of reading something so current. And it was lovely.
It's so contemporary, Sarah, that it ends in like 2024. Like the whole book, and it was like I wanted it to be that current because I wanted to say, yeah, we are talking about this country we're living in right now. This is just something that I was always conscious of, housing crisis, homelessness. It got more and more urgent as the writing of that book went on. And I realized, no, this is the right time for this. This is really important and we need to set this now. And there's a climactic thing that happens in an environmental sense. The whole structure of the book is threaded around the Brisbane River, which always betrays us. We think it's this sleeping brown snake. We think it's just sleeping in the sun and it's calm, but beneath it, it's actually the second most dangerous river in Brisbane, and it is equally dangerous because the way it rises all the time and destroys our city. And it's been doing that a lot more frequently than it used to. It causes us so much trouble, and yet it's the most beautiful part of our city, and it's like, that's really interesting, and our girl's relationship with that thing. And it was like, to be current, I had to kind of end the story in a time when that thing might be able to rise again. And it only rises in a certain couple of months. You can count on it. It's coming. Like, it will awaken again.
Yeah, I like the device of it. It was always there as a potential, always there as a threat, because many characters lived along the edge of it. And they have nothing, and it can all get swept away. And so the potential for that threat existed in so many more ways than what it can just do to the city, for what it can do to the humans that don't have a place to go.
And I like Sarah, I saw the most beautiful things in terms of community, from the way the community wrapped its arms around our homeless in the city when those both the times we've had major floods in the space of 10 years, and I've covered both of them as a journo. I watched the chains of 100 people carrying an elderly woman out of her home, passing her like a relay baton. And I've watched our famous mud armies gather and sweep out the homes of strangers for 3 days straight for no thanks whatsoever. And it's like true community spirit. That's what we do every time some of these terrible disasters happen. It's the most beautiful thing. And I genuinely think that's the way through for our country, which is currently fairly divided, but just constantly remembering that we have the capacity to wrap our arms around every invisible person in this country and make everyone seen. Boy Swallows Universe, it was all about the 3 words, Boy Swallows Universe, like 3-word headline for hardcore editor thing. Tell your story in 3 words, and the boy comes up with Boy Swallows Universe. But this story can be told in 2, and it's Nobody's Invisible. That's it. That's Lola in the Mirror.
Well, I don't know where to go from there, so I'm going to leave it there, Trent, although I feel like you're a person I could go sit by a campfire and talk to for hours.
Can we do that up in a hill somewhere here? That'd be amazing. I'd love that, Sarah.
You're welcome anytime. Next time you book in an extra day and we'll find a spot. I'm so grateful for your generosity of spirit, time and your writing. Thank you so much for joining me.
You're the best. Thanks for your time. It's been an honour. Thanks for listening.
Trent Dalton, author of Lola in the Mirror. That's it for this minisode of Sundoku. Thank you so much for joining me, and as always, you can dip back into our wonderful previous episodes of Sundoku. Annie, Michaela, Kath and I have spoken to so many authors over the last couple of years. We've talked about new stories, old stories, classics, poetry, inspirations. There's sure to be something great in there for you. I hope you enjoy. Bye for now.
Hi, Jeremy Cordeaux in the Court of Public Opinion. I'm just on air here to let you know that we'll be live streaming the Court of Public Opinion every Friday between 9 o'clock and 12 on jeremycordeaux.com. Please join us. We'd love to have you.